What's going on, guys? This is Martyrs Brigade 99 coming to you once again with another session of Dark Souls commentary. Now, I know some of you guys on face value are going to think to yourself like, yo, Brigade, dude, stop being stuck in the past. Get rid of the Dark Souls footage and let's see some Dark Souls 2 footage. Well, guess what? I just had to go ahead and add a few clips to the beginning of this video for the purposes of a little nostalgia. Right now, it's kind of odd that I'm going to start off my commentaries this way. And when I say commentaries, I'm basically talking about saying that we now have Dark Souls 2, starting my commentaries as it relates to the new game. It's going to be real weird starting off the way I'm going to start, but I just have to do it this way. Now, before we start talking about walkthroughs, before we start talking about Dark Souls 2 PvP, I think it's about time for me to just get a little bit of things off my chest. Now, each and every time I PvP, it is such a reminder of, I would say, 4 videos that I uploaded in the past. And those videos were all uploaded last year. And as a matter of fact, let me just go ahead and give you the title of those videos. So, in the event that you guys may be new to the channel, maybe you may have forgotten, let me just go ahead and give you guys a reminder. There are 4 videos in particular that I think of each and every time I PvP in Dark Souls 2. Those videos are titled The Network Test, First Impressions from a PvP Perspective, In Defense of Toggle Escape. The next video after that was Is Stacking Poise the Answer? And the last video I think of is Holding On to the Memories of the Good Old Days. Now, I know it's been a while since all 4 of those videos have been uploaded, and I know some of you guys may be like, dude, I may have watched it, but I kind of forgot what you were talking about. Let me just go ahead and give you a reminder. Alright, so in my first impressions video, I talked about several things that were concerns to me. Now, at the outstart of my first impressions video, first off, it was the first impressions of the network test, what they call, some people call the beta, but it was actually a network test. A lot of people argued that, well, they were just testing the servers to make sure everything was okay. And, what we are playing right now is no way a representation of what the final product would be. My argument in the network test is that at the end of the day, even though they may be testing connections, testing servers, testing, getting into contact with two different players, at the end of the day, they're still trying to sell us a product. Because think about it. At the end of the day, it's a business, right? They're out for making money. They want to get the most profits that they can. So it just wouldn't make sense for them to create and allow for us to play during the network test a crappy version of a final product. And that was my argument. So in other words, whereas a lot of people were saying, yo, Brigade, you're just making a big deal out of nothing because none of the things that you're talking about will exist in the final game because I have trust in FromSoft. My argument was like, look, at the end of the day, if they were to give us crap, that wouldn't be a good business decision. And the reason why that wouldn't be a good business decision is because seeing all the hype that they've invested into Dark Souls 2, why would they put forth something that's kind of half-assed just for some of us to say, you know what, based upon that network test, I don't really think I'm impressed, so I might just go ahead and take back my reservation for a pre-order. Or maybe I might think twice until later on. No, that's not the case. That doesn't even make any sense. Right? So my argument was, even though there was still some changes that had to be made, more than likely what we played would have been a representation of what the final product was. Now, let me just point out a few things that I talked about in that particular video. I talked about the floatiness and I don't know how you want to the floatiness and like the character controls, and how due to the feel of the game, the PvP would be less technical. I talked about the fact that, you know, all the things that we enjoyed in the past, the Yami Tamashi type PvP, the Dark Souls Mind's Eye tricks that we've seen, you know, in the forest and everywhere else, spades, all those high-speed videos that so many of us love to watch, pretty much a lot of that stuff will be out of the window because the game is less technical, mainly due to the controls, right? Not due to the new weapons, not due to the new movesets, not due to the new engine and all that other stuff, but just for the fact that if the controls are not tight, if they're not concise, if they're not calibrated real tight, then it's going to be very difficult to pull off a lot of the things that we enjoyed in Dark Souls. Everybody told me that I was crazy. You guys look at the number of dislikes I got in that video. You guys look at the comment section. Everybody told me that I was ridiculous. Another thing that I said, for the most part, invaders would be screwed, right? I said invaders would be screwed because the fact that you can have up to 3 people. The invader couldn't heal. The fact that there was a lot of stun locking, and you have 3 against 1. Not only the stun locking, but also because since the controls were a lot looser than what they were, a lot of the things that we were able to do to, you know, turn the tides against against gankers, it would no longer exist. In other words, you know, because I know you guys have seen it in my videos, you've seen it in Spades' videos, Yami Tamashi's videos, Dark Souls Mind's Eye's videos. A lot of those times where you see you're faced against 2 or 3v1 and one person is able to turn the tides. And that was mainly due to the tight controls, right? But seeing that the engine is the way it is, that would no longer exist. That was another thing that I talked about. There were so many things that I talked about in that network test. And the main thing that I talked about was the stun locking. And the funny thing about it is, everybody said that I was making a big deal out of nothing, because since Peeve said that all you needed was, well, at the time it was agility, but now it's adaptability. Since he said that's all you needed, you know, then basically the problems will be solved. If you guys would check out the comments section to that video, look at the number of dislikes. I've never had as many dislikes on any video as I have had on that particular one. Everybody told me that based upon the popular opinion of 2 particular uploaders, that my analysis was far-fetched, it was out of touch, and it had no implications for what we will see in the final product. Okay, so enough about that. In the video that I titled "In Defense of Toggle Escape," one thing that I said, you want to know what? I'm fine with the fact that we will no longer have toggling, but if they do not replace toggling with some type of mechanic to prevent from stun locking, all you're going to see is a lot of R1 spamming and poise stacking. Because when there's no poise, or when you're in a situation and you have no poise and you can't prevent from being stun locked, all it's going to call, you know, basically the only thing that's going to be is a R1 contest, a stun lock contest. After that, I came up with a video called "Is Poise the Answer?" You know, is stacking poise the answer? So many people in that comment section told me that, you know, you don't have to worry about it in Dark Souls because we're so confident in FromSoft because the final product is not out and you're just making a whole bunch of hype. Enough about that. Last video that I made, you know, that I think about each and every time I PvP in this game is the video titled "Holding On to Memories of the Good Old Days." One thing that I talked about is, despite that we may have had a lot of issues in the original Dark Souls, you know, the BS fishing and some of the other things that a lot of people just really couldn't stand, Dark Souls was really a good game. At the end of the day, It was really a good game. The controls were tight. It allowed for a lot of impressive tactics, a lot of impressive moves, especially when placed in a lot of situations that were not necessarily ideal. So let's go ahead and fast forward. So after I received so much hate after those videos, let's look at what we have now. So from what I was told, agility was the answer. Agility was the be all end all. Agility was like the coming of Christ for the most part, right? And that, brigade, all you have to do is max out your agility. You don't have to worry about anything because, two popular guys told us that was the be all end all. Well, guess what, guys? I won't even talk about my own experience. Just think about your own experiences. Have you guys been getting stun locked? Has it been fun? Has it been fun even when you've made investments into agility? Another thing, how technical is PvP really when you can't counter a lot of these things that are going on? In other words, someone may argue that poise was the counter to being stun locked. And that's what a lot of people said in the video that I created titled In Defense of Toggle Escape. Everybody said, well, poise is the answer. Poise is a good mechanic. Dude, I had so many comments telling me that I just need to get used to it and all these other things. But my argument was each and every type of build should be viable. May it be a build with low poise or a build with a crap ton of poise. Every build should be viable. And the degree to which you're successful or not should not necessarily depend on stats. In other words, the degree to which you're able to get out of stun lock should not be dependent upon a stat. It should be based around some type of mechanic that could equally be learned from everybody. And let me give you an example of kind of what I'm talking about. Now, as you guys would know, in a lot of my videos, I use less than 53 poise, and we're going back to Dark Souls 1. Now, for a lot of you guys that may be new to Dark Souls 2, you don't really know anything about the original Dark Souls, a lot of what I'm saying may be kind of irrelevant, right? Because if you haven't experienced the first game, what I'm saying is kind of like foreign. So let's just say I was running, and as a matter of fact, in that video that I uploaded titled In Defense of Toggle Escape, I ran 0 poise. Just for the sake of argument, to demonstrate that you could be successful not only with stacking poise, but also with lower poise. It was just all a matter of learning certain tactics. Now, some people argued that, well, it was a glitch and all of that. Like I said before, one thing that I argued is that even if they take out toggle escape, for which they did, as long as they add something within the game to where everyone could equally prevent toggle escape without, having it being dependent upon some kind of stat, PvP will be fine because everyone will be basically on equal ground, equal footing. But that's not the case. So, it's just really interesting. Now that we have fast forwarded, the game is finally out, I really think that the PvE and how vast it is and how good it is greatly overshadows a lot of the flaws in PvP. And, another thing that's kind of interesting to me, one thing, if you guys paid attention to the weeks and months leading up to the release of Dark Souls 2, all these big time personalities telling everybody in the community how wonderful the game was. Now keep in mind, I'm not talking about the guys who focus on PvE. I'm fine with them. My channel has never been about PvE. It has always been around PvP, for which, I really had a problem with it. Because when you listen to their opinions, all of them said how perfect the game was. Oh God, the game is so perfect. There's nothing wrong with it. And I'm thinking to myself, like, come on now. You can't be so much of a fanboy to where nothing is wrong. In other words, as much as I even like the original Dark Souls, dude, it had flaws. You understand? It had flaws. Not too many things in life is perfect. As much as I like, I know a lot of you guys may know by now that I like Killzone, the whole Killzone franchise. 2, 3, and 4. And I say 2, 3, and 4 because I never played the original Killzone. But even those games have flaws. In other words, no game is perfect. So it was always interesting to me whenever I heard a lot of these big time personalities from the community saying, oh God, the game is so wonderful. The game is so great. PvP is going to be fine. All you need to do is stack adaptability and you're good. And I'm like, okay. And then when you fast forward and you realize that a lot of these guys had access to the game a week in advance, they had their connections with Namco Bandai, then it was like, oh, okay, well, no wonder. In other words, from a business perspective, if I'm investing a lot more money into marketing, and I kind of reach out to some of the most popular voices within the community that I'm trying to sell a product, that I'm trying to market a product toward, why wouldn't I give them access? Like, why wouldn't I? And in other words, if I were to give them access, and if this thing is all about marketing, why would I allow them to even talk about any flaws? So in other words, I'm not saying that the opinion that the game is perfect, as they said so often, I'm not saying that that's not a sincere opinion. What I'm saying is it's just pretty interesting that everyone who talked about how perfect the game was coincidentally was the same personalities who had access to the game like before everybody else. So it is what it is. So basically the whole point of this video is just to say, some people will agree, some people will disagree. If you're new to Dark Souls, by way of Dark Souls 2, a lot of what I'm saying you won't even be able to relate to because you never played the original game. But now that we have changed, we have stun locking now. Although there is adaptability, people can still get stun locked. I mean, you just cannot deny the fact that PvP will be a lot less technical. I'm not saying it won't be enjoyable because, like I said before, the PvE is so vast, it's so good. The PvE is fine. So since it's so good, it's kind of easy for you to say, you know what? I mean, there's some changes in PvP. It may be less technical. Yeah, there's stun locking and all these other things. But everything is so great that it's not even that serious. I can understand that. And for a lot of those guys who will say, you know what, Brigade, you know why we're like totally ignoring everything that you're saying? It's because Dark Souls is not necessarily a PvP game. This is not Street Fighter. So for you to take it that serious, that's a problem with you there, Brigade. Well, guess what? My argument would be, even if that's the case, even if your argument is like 80% PvE and 20% PvP, does that mean that PvP should be lacking? Because even if it's a small part of their product, there's still a large population of people who only like to PvP. Think about it. And they know that. May it be the Japanese community, the American community, the so-called Western communities. They have to know how popular PvP is. In addition to, how popular the PvE is. So whatever, it is what it is. I'm going to be coming out with a few more videos. I just had to come out with this video just to express my opinion. Because, when I think about all the negative comments that I received, when I talked about how stun locking would be a problem, how the game would be a lot less technical, everyone told me that because it was said by some popular voices that all you would need to do is stack the agility, that I didn't know what I was talking about. Lo and behold, we finally have the final product. It is what it is. So I have a few more videos coming out because, after I've taken these 2 weeks to play this game, I have a lot to get off my chest. Right? Now, Keep in mind, a lot of it won't be negative rants, and that's for those who think that this was a negative rant, for which I don't even consider a negative rant. I just believe that, it's just interesting how many people said that I would be wrong, when lo and behold, much of what I said, I was actually right. So hey, until next time, Martyrs Brigade is out.